Most people spend their entire lives trying to become successful, and very few stop to ask what success is actually supposed to give them. We chase better jobs, bigger salaries, nicer houses, more followers, more recognition, and more achievements because somewhere along the way, we were taught that if we collect enough of these things, happiness will eventually arrive. So we keep moving. We tell ourselves that this stressful period is temporary, that we'll spend more time with our family when work becomes easier, that we'll call our old friends when life becomes less busy, that we'll finally slow down when we've made enough money. But there is always another goal waiting.
Another promotion, another bill, another project.
Another reason to postpone the life we're supposedly working so hard to build. And then one day, you realize that years have passed. The people you love have grown older. Some friendships have disappeared. Some conversations will never happen again. And you start wondering whether you spent all those years building a successful life or simply becoming very good at being busy. For decades, scientists have been trying to understand a question that almost every human being eventually asks: what actually makes a person happy? Not what looks impressive from the outside, not what gets you applause, and not what makes you temporarily excited, but what genuinely makes life feel worth living. One of the most remarkable attempts to answer that question is the Harvard study of adult development, which began in 1938 and followed people through decades of their lives. Researchers watched people grow up, build careers, fall in love, get married, raise families, experience success, experience failure, become wealthy, struggle financially, get sick, recover, grow old, and eventually face the final stages of life. After all those years, the answer wasn't nearly as glamorous as we might expect. The people who tended to live healthier and happier lives were not simply the people who achieved the most. Again and again, the quality of their relationships emerged as one of the most important factors in a good life. That answer sounds almost too simple. We've built an entire culture around the idea that happiness is somewhere ahead of us. We think we'll be happy when we get the degree, when we get the job, when we make more money, when we move to a better place, when we become successful, when we find the perfect partner, when we finally have enough freedom to relax. But there's a problem with constantly attaching happiness to the next achievement. The next achievement never stops being the next achievement. You reach one goal, enjoy it for a moment, and then your mind immediately creates another. You buy the thing you wanted, and after a while, it becomes normal. You get the promotion you work for, and suddenly, you're worried about the next position. You reach a financial milestone, and then the milestone moves. If your definition of a good life is always somewhere in the future, you can spend your entire life arriving nowhere. And perhaps the most painful part is that relationships are often the first thing we sacrifice while chasing all of this. Think about how often you told someone, "I'll call you later." How many dinners have been postponed because you were busy? How many messages have you read and thought, "I'll reply when I have more time"? How many times have you wanted to visit your parents, meet an old friend, or spend an evening with someone you love, but convinced yourself that work was more important that day? The strange thing about time is that we rarely understand its value while we're spending it. You assume your parents will always be there. You assume your friends will always be around. You assume you'll have another opportunity. Most of the time, you don't realize something was precious until it becomes a memory. That's why a good life isn't necessarily a life without problems. Every person has problems. Even wealthy people have problems. Successful people have problems. Happy people have problems. The difference is that a meaningful life gives you people with whom you can carry those problems. There's an enormous difference between suffering alone and knowing that someone will answer when you call. There's something powerful about having a person who knows the version of you that nobody else sees. Someone who has watched you fail and still believes in you. Someone you can sit beside without having to pretend everything is fine. Those relationships don't always look impressive from the outside, but they can become the foundation of an entire life. And this is where modern life gets strange. We have more ways to communicate than any generation before us, yet many people feel deeply disconnected. You can have hundreds of thousands of followers and still have nobody you would call when your life falls apart. You can spend all day talking to people online and still feel completely alone when the screen goes dark. Because connection isn't the same thing as contact. Having someone's name in your phone isn't the same as having someone who truly knows you. Seeing someone's post isn't the same as being part of their life. A good life isn't measured by how many people know your name. It's measured by how many people you can be completely yourself around. The sad part is that meaningful relationships don't usually disappear because of one huge argument. They disappear quietly. A few missed calls become months without speaking. A friend moves away and you keep saying you'll visit. Family dinners become less frequent. Conversations become shorter. Everyone gets busy. Nobody intentionally decides to lose the relationship. It simply becomes less important than everything else. And that's why relationships need something that ambition often doesn't require: attention. You have to maintain them. You have to show up. You have to ask how someone is doing and actually listen. You have to make time even when you don't feel like you have any. None of this means you shouldn't chase success. You should work hard. You should build your career. You should make money. You should have ambitions and goals. There is nothing noble about deliberately staying stuck. The problem is not ambition. The problem is believing that achievement can replace connection. It can't. You can build a company and still need someone to celebrate with. You can become financially independent and still need someone to call after a terrible day. You can accomplish everything on your list and still feel empty if you have nobody meaningful to share the life with. Eventually, the things that seem so important today may become surprisingly small. You probably won't remember every email you answered this year. You won't remember every meeting. You won't remember the majority of the things that made you anxious this month. But you may remember the night your family stayed up talking until 2 a.m. You may remember the friend who showed up when you needed help. You may remember a conversation with someone who changed the way you saw yourself. You may remember laughing so hard that you couldn't breathe. You may remember sitting beside someone you loved and realizing even for a moment that life was good. Those moments don't usually announce themselves. Nobody tells you this is one of the most important moments of your life, so pay attention. They simply happen. That's why you have to learn to recognize them while they're happening. The dinner you're rushing through might be one of the last dinners you ever had with someone. The conversation you're too busy to have might be the conversation you wish you could have years later. The person you keep assuming will always be there is also living on borrowed time, just like you are. So maybe the better question isn't, how can I become more successful? Maybe it's, what kind of person am I becoming while I'm trying to become successful? Are you becoming someone who has money but no time? Someone who has achievements but no relationships? Someone who is admired by strangers but unknown by the people closest to you? Or are you building something more balanced, where your ambition has a place but doesn't consume everything else? Because at the end of the day, a good life probably isn't about winning some competition against everyone around you. It's about reaching the end of your life and feeling that you were actually there for it, that you love people, that you allowed yourself to be loved, that you worked for something meaningful but didn't forget the people standing beside you, that you made mistakes, repaired relationships, laughed often, helped someone when you could, and gave your attention to things that deserved it. So call your mother, message that old friend, sit down with your family without your phone on the table. Ask someone how they're really doing. If there's someone you've been avoiding because of pride, maybe send a message. If you've been telling someone you love them later, say it now. Not because a scientific study told you to, but because life has a habit of moving much faster than we expect. You can chase money. You can chase success. You can chase recognition. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. Just don't become so obsessed with building a life that looks good from the outside that you forget to build one that feels good from the inside. Because when everything is finally said and done, the most valuable parts of your life may not be the things you owned or the titles you earned. They may be the people who knew you, the people you loved, the people who stood beside you, and the ordinary moments you almost overlooked. A good life isn't necessarily a perfect life. It's a life where when you finally look back, you don't just remember what you achieved, you remember who you loved. And you realize you were loved too.